I bet you've seen a ton of courtroom dramas in your day. There are plenty of films with a plot that revolves around a trial of a wrongly accused protagonist with the odds stacked against them. And there are certainly many quality entries that fall under this category. They include JFK, Inherit the Wind, A Few Good Men, The Trial of the Chicago 7. There's no shortage of them. But these films are often very serious and heavy-handed. Furthermore, many courtroom dramas often tend to glorify the traditional nature of the Western legal system. Fewer courtroom plots are found as the basis of a comedy film, however. That's where My Cousin Vinny steps in. The 1992 courtroom comedy, My Cousin Vinny, directed by Jonathan Lynn, takes the portrayal of American legal procedure in film and flips it on its elitist head. Joe Pesci stars as the titular character Vinny, a dickhead New Yorker who has been practicing law for about 6 weeks after passing the bar on his 6th go-around. The film co-stars Marisa Tomei, who won an Oscar for her performance as Mona Lisa Vito.
Oh, thank God.
Automobile aficionado, and Vinny's fiancé. Ralph Macchio of Karate Kid fame also appears as Vinny's cousin Bill.
Nice.
Bill and his friend Stan are on a cross-country road trip to college and driving through a small town in Alabama when they stop at a convenience store. After leaving and getting back on the road, Bill realizes he forgot to pay for a can of tuna he stuffed in his pocket while his hands were full. Stan starts to get a bit anxious because of how this region of the country views outsiders and thinks if they were caught it could have been serious. Sure enough, shortly after, they are pulled over by a sheriff and taken in. But, as they soon find out, it isn't for theft, but for murder. It turns out the store clerk was shot and killed just moments after they left by another pair of suspects in a similar vehicle. Stuck far away from home, they are stranded and about to be locked away for a crime they didn't commit, until Bill learns he has a cousin who is a lawyer, and I think you can put the rest together. It's Joe Pesci in the Bible Belt. Comedy ensues. This is a movie I watched a bunch growing up, and like the topic of my previous selection episode, Jurassic Park, it is a movie for which I was probably a lot younger than I should have been the first time I saw it. Only recently have I done a couple of rewatches after years between seeing it, and I have to say I still love watching this movie. It is a classic Joe Pesci vehicle that allows him to simply be Joe Pesci while the camera films it. But upon those recent rewatches, I gained a new additional reason to appreciate this movie. My Cousin Vinny takes a stab at a particular genre of content, the courtroom procedural drama. There are plenty of films, especially increasingly in the modern era of Hollywood, that are in and of themselves a joke. But the movies categorized in this subgenre of films, which tend to flaunt self-awareness and self-deprecating humor, exist primarily to make fun of their own existence. Many of these movies insist on proclaiming to their audience, "We're in on the joke," in an attempt to prove their own existence to begin with. These movies can, no doubt, be well made, and indeed many are. But the fact remains that, generally, movies that exist to poke fun at themselves are multi-million-dollar wastes of money and time, which too often exist solely to make a profit. If you think of a film as the medium that it is, then the existence of a movie in the most idealistic sense is to send a message. A message is a statement directed toward a greater concept. When a cheap, lazy, self-deprecating film, for example, is made, that is hardly a work directed at something anymore, and instead a recursive project pointed directly back at itself. My Cousin Vinny is an example of a movie that messes with a previously ingrained concept, but instead of being a self-deprecated circus clown of a film that exists merely as a sellout punching bag of a project which points to nothing but itself, it is a film that points towards something. In this case, the flaws in the American legal system and the ongoing epidemic of predetermined trials based on established tradition. Now, I understand that this type of critical conversation may be a bit uncalled for with a fun and lighthearted comedy movie such as this, but this movie is just one example of a film that dares to be self-aware and question the status quo of its predecessors in its genre or subgenre, while still being a work made with even moderately genuine purpose. But above all that, it's just a really enjoyable, well-written, feel-good comedy, and one you should definitely check out if you've never had the pleasure.
What is the feature-length podcast? Anyone?
The feature-length podcast is a show where 3 idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, are you talking to us?
Yeah. I'm talking to the voices in my head.
Like, I truly don't know. It felt like a fever dream. I swear to God, I could not
It sounds so
make this shit up.
stupid hearing that.
If you're listening to this is a podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the Feature Length Podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies and TV for a feature length of time.
As per the guidelines of the second series of selection episodes here on the feature-length podcast, this is a film that my co-hosts Carolina and Marco had never seen before, and I look forward to getting their fresh takes on the film as well. So let's get this trial underway. And how did you guys find your experiences of watching My Cousin Vinny?
I loved this movie so much. I immediately messaged Dan because I was just so delighted. I knew nothing about it except that Joe Pesci was in it. My first note is literally Joe Pesci, Karate Kid, ? Marisa Tomei. Just from watching the film. It was so fun. It was hilarious. It was engaging. It was like a commentary on like killing people for crime, because that probably wasn't something that was being talked about that much in film at the time. It was just delightful. I literally was like laughing with delight by the end. I loved it. I'm so happy I had to watch it. This was great.
That's great news for me.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, I was so delighted. I was just laughing out loud the whole time.
Well, I hated it. I'm just fucking around again.
There's always one.
I also loved it. I also messaged Dan privately when I started watching it to be like, this is fucking
It's
awesome.
funny how both of you did it to avoid spoiling it for the other person.
Yeah.
But you just both ended up doing
Yeah.
it anyway.
That's funny. I also thought it was awesome. It's really funny, obviously, but it's like good humor because it's not too referential to anything other than itself, like we've talked about before. So it just exists in its own little world, and it's very funny. All the performances are great. Ralph Macchio, so funny. Just that he's in this. Joe Pesci, obviously so funny. Marisa Tomei is great. She won an Oscar for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's incredible.
That was the one and only nomination for this movie.
Wow.
Whoa.
She's great. She's really great in it. And yeah, I love it. I also just love, in general, stories about like idiots that succeed at something. Like they're just very heartwarming to me. For example, let's even say like Pink Panther movies, how like Inspector Clouseau is like a dumbass,
Yeah.
but then like by the end somehow always dumbasses his way into like solving whatever the mystery is. And like not that Joe Pesci's a dumbass in this, he's not, but he's just like, well, but I think it's fair to say that he's just like in over his head.
Yeah.
Like, but like he intuits his way into eventually like solving the problem, and it's great. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. And it has like, we always talk about let's get hype moments, but like the ending of this in and of itself in the courtroom is very much like a let's get hype moment. Yeah. Yeah.
I just showed Marco a note I had that just said "ah" in capital.
It's so great.
From the end.
The whole ending of this reminds me so much of that scene from A Few Good Men. Not the ending of A Few Good Men, which is obviously iconic, but it's that scene where Kevin Bacon is 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is trying
I forgot
to.
he was in that movie.
Yeah, so he's the prosecutor, and he's basically saying how like a code red couldn't exist because it's not in the manual, the guidebook or whatever. And Tom Cruise's defense is he grabs the manual and he's like, "Okay, show me where. Does it say in the manual where the lunchroom is?" And he's like, "No." And then his whole thing is like, "But if it doesn't say in the manual where the lunchroom is, like, how could you possibly eat?" And he's like, "Well, I guess you just follow the cows at chow time." It's like the expression, but it was just like the whole ending of this was just that level of like satisfying of like, oh, that's so smart. Yeah. But this one, obviously, it's more in like surrounded by humor as opposed to drama. But it's it's still like finds a way to be smart inside of humor, which I really appreciate.
So I want to start by asking if you have any standout funny parts that you want to talk about right off the bat.
I mean, the whole movie, but like...
I mean, yeah, technically. But like we can kind of forgo going through the story beats with this one because it's not like... I mean, if you guys want to do that, we can, but it's not really crucial. Like, our previous episode was Goodfellas, which we recorded a little while ago, last week.
It's been so long, guys.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't done this in so long.
And I feel like this is very different in that we don't have to go scene by scene story-wise because it's not like a plot-heavy movie. It is the backdrop of a courtroom to set up the humor, which I like a lot about this. How I mentioned in the intro, like it flips a courtroom drama on its head because it's just like a dickhead lawyer, and not just one dickhead lawyer, which we'll get to. But I do like, this is basically like Joe Pesci in this movie is, I think, the most distilled version of Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
In Goodfellas, he's like evil Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
That I don't want to be in a room with.
Yeah.
But I would actually, this version of Joe Pesci is actually very, like charming is the wrong word, but I want to like...
He's chaotic neutral, you know? Like he's just like, he's not chaotic evil, he's chaotic neutral.
Sure, yeah. So I enjoy that a lot. I like how this is basically, if I had to guess at what the closest Jeff Goldblum role of Joe Pesci, of him just being himself.
Sure.
This is probably my best guess at that.
I would think so.
But yeah, did you guys want to like rattle off some of your favorite parts or most funny parts to you? It could be either favorite or funniest.
No, I'm ready. I got a million. I love when they first get taken in and they think it's for the tuna. And the moment that he realizes it and just shouts, "Whoa, wait a minute!" Just the animation, or like the animation in his voice, at the police station. That's hilarious. I also like when Vinny arrives, and him and Marisa Tomei like get out of the car and they're just looking for Chinese food and they're talking to the guy about the mud. He goes, "Wait, you're famous for your mud? How's your Chinese food?" As if that's the only thing that's important in this tiny little town. You go so I don't steal everything.
I like when Joe Pesci first shows up to the jail cell and the one friend thinks like it's like a new inmate. And just like that whole conversation, but it ends with one way or another you're getting fucked. Which is just like...
It's like, it's your...
Everything he says is perfect to make it think like he's going to fuck him.
It's your ass, not mine.
It's your ass.
It's like, at one point it's like, I think you should get down on your fucking knees, to be honest.
Yeah, I love all that.
But he means just to thank him.
It's so good. I love, that's such like a sitcom like misunderstanding thing, but it's so funny. It's really good.
Well, that's kind of, I think, what I loved about this movie is that so much of it just felt like sitcom-y. Like even just, they kept having to move hotels because they kept waking up for hilarious reasons and he couldn't get any sleep.
I was gonna say, like, while I was watching it, this movie reminds me of, like, it's almost like a Seinfeld episode, but as a movie.
Yes.
Like, it's just very, like, ridiculous and silly, like, who would be in this situation, but it's funny, obviously. It's so great.
That leads me to one of my favorite moments is when... so the train passes by the first time.
Yeah.
And the next morning he comes down to the guy at the counter. He's like, "Is it normal for that train to come at 5 a.m.? He's like, "No, that's really irregular." And then it comes back the next morning. And then he bangs on the bell like repeatedly until he comes. And just like the blank stare on his face is like the funniest thing to me. And then he asks him, "I thought you said it was abnormal." And he's like, "Yeah, it usually comes at like
4:50.
10 after 4.
Yeah. It's so good. Oh, I love that moment so much.
Also, I love when they're sleeping in the car in the woods.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then he slips in the mud, whatever. But then he goes into the trunk to like take out the jack or whatever.
Yes.
And he throws the suit in the mud, and then he ends up like dirtying it, so he has to wear that like magician's costume.
It's so good.
Into the court, and he's like. He starts explaining just the whole spiel of like, I had a suit, you saw it, that got dirty, and it was either wear this or that ridiculous leather jacket which you hate, so I wore this ridiculous thing for you. I love like the relationship between him and the judge, just the absolute like spite between them.
Me too.
Well, their whole arc was so good because at the beginning, of course, he hates him, like the way he comes off this big city lawyer into this tiny little Alabama town. I don't even know if it is a town, a village, a county, I don't know.
Definitely not a village, but yeah, maybe a county.
Village is kind of permanent.
Yeah, village is very...
Beecham County.
Yeah.
Which is fake. It's actually made up for the movie.
Oh, okay, good. So they didn't want to offend anyone?
No. Yeah, I'm sure we have listeners in
all the
rural Alabama.
Can you imagine? Yeah, and I love he just keeps like lying.
They don't know what it is.
Oh my God. And he just keeps lying to him and keeps getting out of it. Like, he's just so clever in this film. And I get, like, he explains that's, like, why he became a lawyer, essentially, because he just can talk his way out of anything.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately how he wins. Yeah, it was just one of those movies where it's kind of all laid out for you at the beginning. Like, the scene is set perfectly. It's these two guys, this fast talking cousin who doesn't really know what he's doing, but you know he's gonna get him out of it from his fast talking. And so sometimes when movies are just so obvious like that, you don't expect them to be that entertaining. But I was enthralled the whole time.
Yeah.
Even like, and I found that this movie was really good at demonstrating Joe Pesci's like physical comedy, like not as much as Home Alone, because like of course, but like in this one when Marisa Tomei was owed the $200 or whatever, and so he kept trying to get it from that guy, and eventually when he goes to fight him, he just jumps on him.
Yeah.
And it was the funniest thing because he like jumped sideways because he's so short to like take him out.
He's like 5'4".
It was so funny.
That also reminded me of in Goodfellas when he finally, like in that scene where they're joking around where he's like, what, I'm a joke? And then the third time he like jumps on him in a similar way.
Yeah.
Just the Joe Pesci jump.
Yeah. This would have been 2 years after Goodfellas.
Okay.
So shortly after.
Interesting.
Oh wow, he did this after. That's interesting to me.
But apparently it stuck with him long enough to make that album.
Yeah.
That we talked about.
Which
was that on recording that we were talking about?
I don't even remember, but
okay, well if it wasn't,
yeah,
Joe Pesci has.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's
no
still
longer
available to
exists,
listen to. So
No, but he has a music career. And one of his albums is him reprising the role of Vinny to record a rap album, which none of us have listened to, but know that it exists.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll listen after.
Maybe we'll insert a clip of one of the songs
Just
right here.
Hey, I don't drive by. I'm a wise guy. I just stop by with a couple of guys, and I take your eyes, 'cause I'm a wise guy. I'm a wise guy.
Does he reprise his role for the whole album or just a song?
The album's called Vincent Gambini. Something.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of just Gambini as the last name, it leads into one of my favorite jokes, which is when Ralph Macchio is trying to convince his friend that like Vinny can do the job, and he's like, man, like he's like talking about like a wedding that they were at or whatever, and how Vinny was like fast talking, is getting his way out of the wedding, and then he says the line, he was just being the quintessential Gambini, and I don't know why. But just the phrasing of that line and the use of the word quintessential, as if he's talking about like Batman. A fiction, as if he's talking about like a fictional character, where he's just like the quintessential Gambini. I was like, what the fuck does that mean to anyone but you in this situation? Like, why would you ever describe it that way? But I really appreciate that. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and there's also, I think it might be a different scene, but when he's talking about, this is also another Italian thing, like I guess an Italianism, where he's like, listen, my parents love to argue. They live to argue. I've seen how your parents argue. They're amateurs.
Yes.
But I also love, we were talking about his name. Speaking of names, when he has to like make up an identity for the judge, and he lies about being, he has to he changed his name to Jerry Gallo.
Yeah.
Because Vincent Gambini was a fake he says was a stage actor in New York. And then the judge researches Jerry Gallo, finds out that he's dead because he stole the name from a headline of a famous lawyer, but he didn't read that it was because he died. So then he goes back to the judge and says, wait, you thought it was Jerry Gallo? No, I'm Jerry Callow.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
And apparently Callow was the name of a lawyer that they like consulted with.
Because that's fun.
This movie was praised for its accuracy in courtroom procedure.
Yeah, it really is.
I only recently found that out.
I do.
Okay. About courtroom procedure
a little
or about
bit.
the praise?
Oh, about courtroom procedure, a little bit.
Just from other movies?
Other movies and just a little bit of just like interest. I was like potentially going to do law at some point, but I didn't. So
really?
yeah.
At what point?
Like a little bit towards the end of high school and then a little bit towards the end of university. Because you can do like patent law with an engineering degree, which is like really good, but it's like a million years of your life. And I was like, I kind of don't want to do that.
Fair.
And
Well, I took one law class in high school.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, you did take law. I remember you took law.
One class.
We had law in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rachel took that.
Yeah.
She was in my class.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rachel.
Hey, Rachel. If you're listening to
She's
this.
probably
She's
not
definitely not
listening.
listening to this.
She has never seen this film and will never see this film.
I think she liked this movie.
Anyone, if you're listening, if you have not seen this film,
Watch it.
yeah.
Yeah, watch it. It's great.
It's so fun. It's hilarious.
I also want to talk about the stuttering lawyer.
Oh my
It's
God.
one of my favorite sequences in this movie.
Oh my God.
Poor man.
I don't remember the name of the guy that plays him, but he's been in he's kind of a character actor who just plays the same person over and over again. But
he always stutters? Just kidding, sorry.
No, I think he does.
Really?
Does he actually stutter in real life?
He
or
was
is it just...
typecast for being a stutterer.
Oh, God.
Okay.
I don't know if he actually in
Yeah,
real life
yeah.
stutters, but what did you guys think of that scene?
Oh, I think it's hilarious.
Well, especially because that was supposed to be them having no faith in Vinny because he proved multiple times that he doesn't actually know the procedure, and they were losing faith in him. And so they were like, fine, we have to go behind his back and get this other lawyer to defend us. And then, he shits the bed.
I like at one point when he's like leaning up for support on a juror
God.
and he's like patting him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the fuck was that? And he's like, well, I'm getting better.
But I do like in...
Doesn't he say he just gets a little nervous or something?
I like how much this movie, to your guys' point, like you talked about, like, it, like, you know everything that this movie's gonna do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know this lawyer's gonna be bad. Yeah. Obviously. It sets it up so much. But it's like, it doesn't matter because the execution of it all is really good. So it's still enjoyable, even though you know he's gonna be bad. You know the other guy's gonna choose Vinny, but it's like, it's just fun. It's just, like, fun to witness how it all happens in some way.
So I love Marisa Tomei's role in this.
Oh, yeah. She's great.
I like that they set up that she's like a car aficionado from like the very beginning, like her first scene.
Yep.
I feel like that moment, specifically at the end where she's testifying, is a very, maybe this is what you were talking about, Marco, like the satisfying finale.
Yes.
That's what you were referring to.
Yeah. The way it all comes together.
Because that scene of her on the witness stand is very energetic, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great. But I do want to talk about, as I made a point in the intro, I want to branch this out to talking about I don't want to say the modern state, but it's very evident in modern humor, I feel, of like the self-deprecating humor of like, this is all a joke, we're just here for like a good time, don't think about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I hesitate to say modern humor rather than like 50-year-old studio execs in suits humor,
right?
Who think that a movie joking about itself would relate more than like actually setting out to genuinely plan a script and think about a concept that you're passionate about and actually be genuine in your endeavor rather than circle back and try and make up for your lack of your instability in your own idea.
Yeah.
Like, what do you guys think about that? How do you think you're seeing more of that now than in like previous films?
I think so. I think part of it too, we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's like,
we've briefly touched on it.
Yeah.
Like, budgets for movies have gone to like so extremes now. Like a movie like this, I feel like you couldn't make now. We talked a little bit about it with When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is like a quintessential Gambini. This is the quintessential like mid-budget movie of like, you have some famous people, some character actors, but like good people involved for like a modest budget, whatever. Just like a movie that exists. And like, this basically doesn't happen anymore. Now every movie is basically like gonna make $1 billion or it has to go right to streaming. And I feel like a lot of like the self-referential fuck it, we're not going to take it too seriously and like rely just on whatever is a way to like save cost. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't have to try. If we don't have to try,
that's what I
then
get from
we
it
can
too.
like, first of all, if we don't have to try, it costs us less money. And second of all, if we don't have to try and this loses money, like we clearly weren't trying. So like, why should we feel bad about it? Whereas if you spend like money and time and effort and try to make a movie that's good and then it fails, then it's like you have something to feel bad about, which is going to happen a lot. It's like that Ridley Scott movie that just came out, The Last Duel, that was like, they spent money and time and effort on and it just failed. And now Ridley Scott is like going on an anger trip talking about how Marvel movies have ruined cinema. And it's like, okay, like I get it, like I know what you're talking about, but also like sometimes movies just fail because people aren't interested in them, and that it's not the end of the world. Like, life goes on. It doesn't mean you should stop trying or you should only make blockbusters or really shitty movies. Like, you can still make like just normal movies. You know what I mean?
But I think it's also like majorly an issue with just how much like is made these days. Like
Yes.
the content, like even this was made in what, the 90s? Like the 90s to now, it's already insane the amount of content, what a buzzword, but content that gets made at all times. And so like in some ways there's less pressure for the people who want to make stuff unless you have like a name attached. But yeah, I don't know, it's just the market is so saturated. I feel like this is all stuff that people say all the time.
It's true though.
And like every sentence that I want to come out of my mouth is like, this is all people talk about. I feel like it's just like Twitter discourse.
Yeah.
Constantly. But that's just where we're at. And even back then, yeah, to like make a movie was a bigger deal. And so like ideally you would care about it and like not, and like take yourself seriously even in like a silly courtroom comedy like this.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the bigger problem. It's just like, to what you're saying, like there's just so much, but most of it's bad.
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of it's really bad.
It's literally just put as much out as you can, regardless of it's
Quality.
quantity over
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah.
It's 100% what it is. And it's, you know, it's unfortunate because like you don't get movies like this or movies like When Harry Met Sally. Like they just don't make movies like that. And it's not, I know, like everyone loves to shit on comic book movies, and it's like, I don't think what those people don't understand is that comic book movies in and of themselves are also dealing with that.
Oh,
When you think about like Venom, when you think about every comic book movie Sony makes, it's like that's the equivalent of what's happening to the rest of cinema, but inside of comic book
yes,
movies.
I 100% agree. For the record, I'm not like when I say nowadays, I don't just mean like the existence of superhero
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
There are many comic book movies that are quite the opposite, where they're still, I mean, most I would say are still genuine in their concept.
Yeah.
There's something like, for example, the new Suicide Squad movie, the remake. It's a good movie, but that whole movie is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say the whole movie exists to make fun of itself.
Yeah.
And to make fun of its genre. And I feel like that movie just like enables like film snobs who say the only good movies are movies that make fun of movies,
Yeah.
because the only movies worth anything are the ones that are aware of how stupid, quote unquote, the medium is, which is inherently untrue.
I know,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Sorry if I sound like a snob.
You don't. You don't. It's ridiculous. It's just
It gets me fired up.
yeah, no, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for sure. I wish we got more of my Cousin Vinny's.
More Cousins,
Me
Vinny.
too.
Yeah.
At least Marisa Tomei is still around in comic book movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci, not so much.
No,
but,
Joe Pesci, you know, he's gone. But Marisa Tomei,
he deserves a break.
She's
He's
around.
old.
Yeah.
She's killing it.
Yeah, she's still doing pretty well.
Yeah.
She's had a pretty consistent career, I think.
Yeah, good for her. She's really good in this. I really love her in this.
I think, like, and I, once again, to just have all of the cards laid in front of you, I love how at the very beginning she's like, how can I help? I want to help. And he goes, there's nothing you can do to help. And she goes, okay, I'm going to sit. And she starts reading and he gets mad at her. And she saves the day in multiple ways. Not only does she testify about cars, but also she calls the judge and makes up a Judge Callow so he doesn't get arrested again. Also, how funny that he keeps getting arrested in court.
Yeah, for contempt.
I
Yeah.
like how they use all of their money to just bail him out of court.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Absolutely.
And then he eventually stays in jail. I mean, and then he eventually
try to
stays
get
in
a good
jail.
night's
Like,
sleep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Because he thought it would be so relaxing, because that's famously what jail is like.
Well, if you've seen Goodfellas, you'll know that
Yeah.
jail's very...
Yeah.
I like how there's like one of the times the judge finds him in contempt, and he's just like, oh, wow, yeah, look at that. Who would have thought?
Oh,
Of course.
no, I know what you're talking about. He's like, oh, that's a fucking surprise.
yeah, I love that. It's a great
And
moment.
then I think the time before that, when he forgets to wear the suit, and
Oh
he's
my
like,
God.
didn't I tell you next time to come into my court wearing like a proper suit? He's like, you were serious about that? Hard cut to him on the bus to the prison.
Oh,
That's
man.
one of my favorite moments too.
Something that I really appreciate when he's talking about, they're like, when he first meets with his cousin, Ralph Macchio, and his friend, and they're trying to figure out like what his experience level is.
Oh yeah.
And they're just like, keep going. They're like, oh, so you've done like murder cases? Nope. You've done like trial law? No. well, you've done like, he's like, no, I just passed the bar like 6 weeks ago. And he's like, how many times did you passed it on your first try, right? No. Second try, no. Third try, no. How long did it take?
Third time's a charm? No, for me, 6 times is a charm.
Well, yeah, because it's even funny because he goes, oh, but you graduated from law school 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's tried every year since.
He needs a year to study.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so real. I love that.
There's also a scene where Ralph Macchio is trying to tell him that he wants to switch to the other lawyer, and he convinces him not to. And he does like that card trick where he's like explaining why the DA's case is like full of shit because like he's using a card as an example. He's like, they'll show you a brick. It's got squared corners. It looks like a brick, but you flip it over and it's made of nothing, just like your case, because you're innocent. And then he flips the card over. And it was like a magic trick too, because the card changed. I love that a lot.
I like that.
Something I didn't notice as a kid.
It's a nice little, I guess, analogy.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's well done, well executed.
But also in not real life, but like the coincidence of 2 guys coming in after them in a similar car, that's just shit luck. I felt so bad for them because initially, like, obviously, as an audience, we know they're innocent because we see them drive away and that nothing happened. But even then, like, when people started testifying and saying, like, yeah, no, I definitely saw these 2 guys. I definitely saw this car. I was like, wait, is this some big conspiracy? Like, I thought for some reason maybe someone in town was trying to frame them because they were outsiders because they set up the county so well. Like at the beginning they show like the Confederate flag, there's signs for free manure. At one point they're talking, I don't know if this is true or not, but they say that in this town you can get executed at the age of 10 for a crime.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but just like
I
knowing
think that's a joke.
Yeah, but knowing all that at the beginning and then having the people testify, I was like, wait, does someone like really prominent in the town do it and now they're blaming it on them because they easily can and like they've paid people off? Like it turns out like no, obviously by the end you find out that like one girl's blind and one guy was making breakfast or whatever. But yeah, so it was, I liked that it took the simpler turn. I think because it was a courtroom drama and like I know it was a comedy, but I was like maybe this will turn into maybe because I knew I was going to watch Goodfellas right after, but I was like, maybe this is going to turn into some like bigger
organized crime.
Yeah.
I'm happy it didn't do that because it would have made the movie worse. But yeah, no, it was fun to be along for that ride at least. I think I was trying to make it deeper than it was.
Well, but on that note, I'm glad it wasn't an organized crime thing, but it's sort of just inherently like these people in a small town, even though they didn't conspire together.
Yeah.
They see these outsiders who they think killed one of their own.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't need evidence, just kill them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about the trial, I just want to see them fry.
Oof. And then at one point when they were in the jail and someone was frying, the one that they were protesting about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
You guys mentioned breakfast. And I just have to say, one of my favorite lines in this movie is when they go to the diner. And he's like they're talking about grits, and then he goes to start making it, and he puts the fucking thing of butter on the pan. And Joe Pesci goes, "You guys down here hear about the ongoing cholesterol problem in this country?" And I just love that. Makes me
I thought you were gonna say, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When he's like, what do you thinking breakfast?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great too.
So,
yeah,
and they show the menu is just breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You know what that reminded me of?
What?
Hell or High Water, when she's like,
God.
"What are you not gonna order?" Love that.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
I love the idea that just like these small town diners that like they make like one or two things. So
it's whatever they're in the mood for
whatever
that day.
you're in the mood for.
Like breakfast, I find is like you know what you're gonna get basically, like eggs and stuff. But for dinner, what on earth?
Yeah, it's true.
It's really
probably
gonna
the
surprise
pigs that
you.
were waking him up because those were like to be
true.
slaughtered, or that could have been the bacon too.
I have a note that just says Vinny bag of donuts.
Yeah, I remember it.
It's right after Vinny first enters their jail cell and is talking to the awake guy. Sorry, I don't remember any of their names because Ralph Macchio is asleep. I think he wakes up and it says something like Cousin Vinny, Vinny bag of donuts or something.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
that's his nickname. Maybe he really likes donuts. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, he is from New York.
Yeah, of course. Everyone in New York loves donuts.
Absolutely, they do.
Actually, Joe Pesci is from New Jersey. He's actually not from New York. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
New Yorkers must be mad.
But the judge in this movie, who doesn't like New Yorkers in real life, is actually a New Yorker.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Which I
funny.
would not have guessed with his accent.
He's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, playing that character.
Yeah, I've never seen him in anything else before.
This was his last movie before he died.
Oh.
Sad.
One of my favorite scenes is when they're in the diner towards the end, and Marisa Tomei brings the pictures that she took throughout the whole trip.
Oh my god, yeah.
And it's like, why are you looking at me like that? What, am I supposed to be a piece of shit because I can't let you help? All right, let's take a look at the pictures that you got. And he gets to the one at the end, and he's like, oh, this is the kicker. This is what's going to crack the case. It's me in the shower.
I love that.
And then, like, the tire tracks one, which ends up, like, helping him, like, solve the case. He's like, could we get any farther away, huh?
Oh, it's so brutal. But I love it. And I love their relationship because it doesn't make sense to me, but I appreciate it.
I love her.
I know, she's too hot for him.
She is significantly
It
hotter
doesn't make
than
sense
him.
at all.
Like,
And he just shits on her most of
I
the
know,
time.
like, significantly
She
more
can do
attractive.
better.
Yeah, she can do way better.
Like, why is she waiting for this man to win one case to marry her?
Also, I love
It's been
when
6 years.
she like brings
10
up
years.
10 years. Oh my god.
Well, actually, I guess he did say 6 years. She says 10 years, probably since he, like, started studying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're waiting for their first case victory to get married.
I love when she brings that up and he's like, oh, thanks, as if I didn't have enough writing on this case. Like, and he starts listing all the things that
Yeah.
are fucked up. And at one point he just gets to, and I haven't had a full night's sleep in like a week or something like that. And it just made me laugh really hard. I was like, oh yeah, this poor bastard. What did he get roped
Honestly.
into? Like,
Although, like, my one complaint for this film is when he first has to appear in court. It's literally just day one. The simple, how do your clients plead?
yeah, the arraignment.
The fact, yeah, I don't. You studied, I didn't.
Yeah.
But the fact that after law school and taking the bar so many times, he didn't even know the basic, guilty or not guilty. The fact that he couldn't say that, I find that to be unbelievable. Because he's not dumb, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You keep saying, like, he's dumb, he's dumb. He's not really dumb.
not dumb.
But come on. Guilty or not guilty? How does he not know that? That was my one fault. I was like, I can't believe that.
That was a little extreme because I was like, even if you
I know
just
you
had a
wanted-
passing knowledge of,
Yeah.
if you had seen a
Yes,
movie, you
literally.
would know that this is the arraignment, and
Yeah.
you just have to say this.
I
Like,
know they wanted to, it was the point to show us that he doesn't really know what he's doing and we're supposed to expect him to fail, at least
Yeah.
in the beginning, but it was just a little too extreme in my mind.
I
So was
totally
like,
agree.
no way.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But I do, like, it's extreme, but there's also the scene that explains all of his knowledge is, like, theoretical, like, contract work.
Yes.
That's all he learned in law school, which seems very realistic to me.
That
And
is
he
true.
Sort of had to go to trials to learn about that, but he never got a chance because he was working in his father-in-law's mechanic,
Yeah.
or as a mechanic, so that kind of made sense to me. But I do agree with what you said of, like, even, like, someone as, like, witful as him would just sort of know that,
Yeah.
even without having been taught it.
Well, but even after the judge says, all you need to do is say, are they guilty or are they not guilty? And he still doesn't say it.
And he just says, I think I get the point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, yeah.
He's just being a wise guy.
Yeah.
Being a wise guy.
What a wise
Being a real
guy.
good fella.
Yeah. There's also the scene in the bar when he's confronting the guy for the $200 the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, how about I just kick your ass? He's like, ooh, a counter offer. That's so intriguing. Let me see. Should I get my ass kicked or get $200? I could really use a good ass kicking, I'm not gonna lie, but I think I'll take the $200. And just the sarcasm in that scene, it's like, that's a perfect example of, like, distilling the character from Goodfellas
Yeah.
Yeah.
into, like, a protagonist character.
Yeah.
That scene, I think, embodies that perfectly.
Totally agree.
I think this is my favorite Joe Pesci performance, honestly.
It's
I
really
know
good.
He won the
Yeah.
Oscar for the Goodfellas one, and he deserves it. But I think the fact that this one is more sympathetic tides it over for me
Yeah.
a little bit more. All the performances. I mean, obviously, Marisa Tomei won an Oscar for hers in this one. So, and yeah, I just think all across the board. I haven't seen anything else by this director, though.
I've never even heard of him.
Jonathan Lynn. I don't know. He's a British guy, and apparently there was going to be
that's random.
there was the beginnings of a sequel planned.
No.
Where he goes to Britain
Stop it.
as a lawyer.
Why?
Which would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I found that humorous. And then someone wrote like a book sequel apparently about him just practicing
Is
law
that
in
allowed?
New York. Yeah, it's like the Star Wars extended universe has like anyone can write a Star Wars book.
Fair.
And that was supposed to be a series, but that got canceled.
Huh.
Which this
Makes
shouldn't
sense.
be a series.
Yeah,
it should
this
be a
is-
singular thing.
Nice little
Yeah.
standalone.
Yes, exactly.
Adventure. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't need more.
Although, like, I understand, like, when you have such a sympathetic character, people just want to see them doing things more.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same way Ted Lasso came about.
Yeah.
I still think both you should watch it.
Yeah.
But
Eventually.
but this is something where I don't think any actual sequel is warranted.
No.
But I do have another comment about Marisa Tomei and Joe Pesci's relationship. They have the weirdest foreplay. In the first hotel,
Yes.
he's talking about like the dripping faucet, and they're going back and forth, like convincing each other otherwise about if it's leaky or not, and then they have sex. I don't know.
It was very
like,
weird.
Maybe once again it was to show us why they work and why Marisa Tomei would be with a Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
In this
Joe
world.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's more just like, yeah, they have a weird
They're made
relationship,
for each
but they're
other.
made for each other. But it is very odd. It's definitely
Very weird.
very odd and not sexual at all. I was like, this is very not. Yeah.
I do have a question for Marco though, because this is
Ooh.
fresh off of the Godfather, the Goodfellas episode.
The Good Father.
The Godfellas. How much do you think? Because this, was, as I said, was 2 years after Goodfellas.
Yes.
How much do you think was inspired by that performance? Like, do you think he purposely tried to distill this R-rated gangster performance into this like PG-13? I was gonna say rom-com. It's not a rom-com, but like I feel like his performance is kind of rom-com-esque, just like isolating his performance.
Yeah.
Do you
I
think?
think here's what I think. I think Joe Pesci has 2 levels of acting, which is R-rated and PG-13 rated. So, yeah, like I think I don't know if it's a conscious effort as much as just like he's like, okay, I can't play this R-rated, so I have to like play the clean version of that. But fundamentally, I don't think I've ever seen him in anything where he's not sort of just playing that character. Actually, that's not true. That's a little bit of a lie. Because he's in Lethal Weapon 2, and he just plays a fucking bumbling idiot in that movie.
Oh.
And that might be my favorite Joe Pesci performance.
Really?
It's really good. And
Just
it's
completely out of character.
Yes. Completely out of character. Like, because he's not like an argumentative... Like, at least in this and Goodfellas, it's like, he's argumentative in both, to some degree. Like, he has like some sass to him. In the Lethal Weapon 2, like, he is just like a pathetic...
Oh.
Like, it is like nothing you've ever seen. And he's just like sad and scared all the time. And
Aw.
it's really good. It's really funny. But unfortunately, Mel Gibson stars in those movies, so you kind of have to get through that. They're very good movies, but, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, but I do think, like, outside of that, everything Joe Pesci does is just some level of, like, a sassy person. And he just tones it up or down depending on the rating of the movie and what needs to be accomplished.
But speaking of a rom-com, I would never want to see Joe Pesci in an actual rom-com.
Oh,
No
are you
offense.
kidding me? I absolutely would. Just for the humor of it. Like,
See, but like that alone would make it, I think, not a rom-com. Like, I can't imagine him or rooting for him as a romantic lead. No offense.
Sure.
It would just turn from a rom-com straight to a com.
I gotcha. Because there's no
Yeah.
actual
Yeah, that's
romance
true.
Yeah.
with Joe Pesci.
Like, even in this, they start making out, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
How, like, are they similar in age? Because she looks
No.
way younger than him to me.
Yeah.
It was like a 20-something difference.
I was gonna say, because I was like, I don't know, maybe she just looks good for her age, but she definitely, okay, you were saying 20-year difference.
She
that
was
makes
like
sense.
mid-20s during this,
Okay.
I
Nice.
believe. If you guys
We didn't talk about Trotter at all.
Oh,
which
the
is
DA?
the other, which is the DA, and how, like, what was their relationship? It kind of confused me. because obviously they're on opposing sides of this, and he wants to hang out with him to like see his files because he thinks that's him being Snoopy, even though Marisa Tomei informs him that he's allowed to see them, and honestly probably should have way in advance.
Yep.
But yeah, so they hang out and then he lets him stay at his hunting cabin. Like, did he like his energy? Like, I don't get it.
See, I kind of appreciate that a little bit because I think to some extent that is what a lot of like law is like these two people that are like vehemently argue with each other and are very opposite sides, but then are just like friends for some reason in real life. It's very weird. You even hear that a lot of the time with like, this is a random pull, but let's say like news anchors on like more like liberal shows versus more conservative shows. A lot of times they're just like friends in real life. And I know for sure they do the same thing in A Few Good Men, where like Kevin Bacon and Tom Cruise's character, like they go out for beers or whatever and talk about the case. So I think it's one of those things where you're still in the same like overall workplace, so you become like workplace friends, even though you're like technically trying to outdo each other all the time. So that feels like real to me. But the specifics of why he would like Joe Pesci, I don't know, because Joe Pesci's very like not likable. Not that he's not likable, but he's just like, they have completely different energy. Like, I don't know why they would be friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, Joe Pesci, I feel like his energy didn't match anyone in that town.
No.
But he got along with, multiple people. Even in the first scene that we mentioned when he wanted to go get the $200 back from that guy, he immediately talks to his friend and he's like, hey, how'd you hurt your neck? Because he wants to help him out.
Did you hurt it at your place or someone else's place? Yeah. But the whole thing with Trotter is like he even kind of mentions in the movie that he likes the challenge.
Right.
So I think the whole thing of him offering up the hunting cabin is him trying to get the leg up on the whole situation and being the bigger man.
Sure.
And just trying to prove that he knows he's going to win the case, which ultimately doesn't happen, but he is the DA who's been practicing there and he sees him as a joke anyway. So like the whole giving him the hunting cabin was like an olive branch sort of thing.
Sure.
In my mind.
Even though he still couldn't sleep there because there was an owl screeching.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That owl also looked hilarious.
Yeah.
The most fake owl I've ever seen in my whole life.
No, that was a real owl.
What?
Yeah.
Do I not know what owls look like?
I was going to say, maybe we've only ever seen fake owls, so seeing a real one is like...
Whoa! I need to Google owls after this.
It's like how artificial banana flavoring actually tastes like how real bananas used to taste before GMOs.
Ew, I would have hated old bananas.
Yeah. You guys know that?
True?
I didn't know that.
Like, bananas that you eat now have been cultivated a certain way, so their taste is different from what they actually used to be, and what they actually used to be is the artificial flavoring taste.
Well, aren't all bananas now genetically identical?
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
it's like
why.
there's a disease that takes out one of them, essentially they'll all go.
Precisely. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember learning that and I was like, what? That's fucked up.
That is fucked up.
I wanted to mention, did you guys know that the courtroom in the movie isn't actually a real, like it was a set
Really?
that was built in a warehouse?
Oh, wow. That
And-
seems like a lot of effort.
I know, right? Because it looked like just a really good courtroom. But like the external shots of the town were a completely different building. This one was apparently a warehouse with like a metal corrugated roof.
Oh my god.
And it was shot in Georgia, not in Alabama.
Huh.
So like with that heat, that set got really hot, like over 100 degrees during filming. So I found that really interesting. Also, the shots of the judge individually, when he had a shot on him, just him, like a close-up, he demanded that they always shoot coverage for his shots, like get all of like the shot sizes on him just so they have it in editing, to make him look good. And also on those shots when no one else was in the shot, he made the other people delivering lines mime the lines and not actually say them.
Why?
Because he didn't want to get cut off during a line delivery.
Oh my
So
God.
if they were doing that, then they could just insert lines whenever because the other person was
Right.
Didn't you guys say this was his last film?
Yeah.
Was he like a big star before this? Like why did he get a special treatment?
Yeah, he was. You have you ever heard of the show The Monsters?
Yes.
I've heard
He
of
was
it.
on that.
Oh,
and that was
okay.
like a big thing.
Okay, gotcha.
But
He got to be a diva a little bit.
pretty much. And I mean, he died shortly after, so
Yeah.
we'll cut him some slack. But I
Sure.
found that really interesting that, like, Joe Pesci, for example, would just have to silently mouth his lines.
That's
And he
very
still looked
strange.
so animated.
I know, yeah. And apparently, like, Ralph Macchio in an interview said, like, when Joe Pesci told him that, he's like, see what I gotta do with this fucking guy? You see what I gotta do? In his Joe Pesci way.
I wouldn't expect him to say anything else.
I found that pretty interesting. Also, did you guys know, because our last episode was Goodfellas, obviously, so Goodfellas tie,
Of course.
the person who plays Karen, I don't remember her name, was...
We have
I don't
not
remember her name.
remembered
I
one
literally
time.
still can't remember her name.
I'm
yeah.
so sorry, Karen.
yeah, sorry. But she was originally in the running for Lisa.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
that-
cool.
That
So-
would have been a different movie.
Yeah, for sure. But what do you guys think about how that would have fell into her, like, her mantra that we were talking about last episode of, like, the portrayal of Italian women?
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because when we, like, in talking about this movie, I also was sort of, like, in relation to that we're watching it close to Goodfellas, it was interesting to me that, oh yeah, like, this is an Italian-American woman that by the end ends up being, like, smart. You know what I mean? And ends up saving the day a little bit in her character because throughout the movie she is most of the time just the stereotypical one that we talked about.
Yeah.
So I do think it would have been very interesting, but I still love Marisa Tomei in this.
For sure, yeah.
But I think it's just that's a fun thing that she was in the running for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Karen was in it, it would have been like a nice bridge between. Sorry, Karen.
Karen.
It would have been a
Karen the
nice bridge
character.
between her two roles. The
Yeah.
one in which she was completely just the mob wife. I mean, I guess Vinny isn't a mobster really in this. And then the super educated role on The Sopranos.
The
so,
actress's name is Lorraine Bracco.
Good job.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
yeah, that's
Bronco?
probably important.
Bracco.
Bracco. Okay.
So shout out to Lorraine Bracco.
Sorry for
Sorry,
forgetting
Karen.
you.
Sorry, but you're awesome. She's really
Yeah,
cool.
because she's listening.
Yeah.
She really
If you ever
wants
see
our
her-
compliments.
If you see her in interviews, because of course there's a podcast now about rewatching The Sopranos
Of
with
course.
the cast of The Sopranos because West Wing did that and now every TV show is
In The
doing
Office.
it.
Yep.
And The Office.
The
But
Office has so many different ones.
yeah, like
It's
every
ridiculous.
cast member
Yeah.
of The Office has one except
Yeah.
like John Krasinski.
Yeah,
only
because
know
he's
about
too
the-
famous.
I only know about the...
And Steve Carell.
Like, the
Office
Pam and
Ladies?
Angela- yeah,
Yeah.
that
well,
one.
because that one's the most famous, but other cast members had ones before, and I feel kind of bad
Yes.
for them.
Yeah. The one on Sopranos is actually Spider from Goodfellas. He's the
Oh,
one who-
seriously?
Yeah.
Which is podcast host?
Yeah, he's one of the two.
That's
He's one of the
funny.
two hosts. But anyway, like Lorraine Bracco's been on that podcast, and she's very fun in real life. Like she's super energetic and cool. She's a cool person.
That's cool.
So yeah, shout out to her because we have not remembered her name
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
In
Complete
like 6 hours of
disservice.
audio we recorded. So.
But it's true that, like, this role is kind of like the middle ground between her two
Yeah.
extreme roles that she discussed.
Mhm.
So that would have been interesting, I think. But also, like, Marisa Tomei killed it. Obviously, she won an Oscar for it.
She's
Yeah.
so good. She's so good.
Another Goodfellas tie, though. Her last name in the movie is Vito, which is maybe a reference to the last name of Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, DeVito, Tommy DeVito.
Interesting. I didn't even
know his
Yeah.
last name in Goodfellas was DeVito.
I read about it. I didn't know either.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
possibly because Joe Pesci, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it can't be a coincidence.
No,
right?
no. You gotta
No.
imagine. Because this is literally like, they would have started making this immediately after he finished Goodfellas. Because it was like a couple years after, right?
Yeah, this was filming as he won the Oscar,
Yeah.
and then he brought it onto the set and showed everyone the Oscar.
That's
my God.
hilarious.
I wonder, like, do you guys think his attitude changed before and after? Like, maybe he got cockier.
I don't know, cause like I don't know what to think about Joe Pesci. We've been talking about him for the last 2 days, and
I don't know about this Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
I can't tell if he just like is a silly schmucky kind of guy, or if he would like change his mind after an Oscar and be like, take me seriously. I just can't imagine taking him seriously as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
Like, speaking of
I
DeVito's, he
hear
gives
that.
me Danny DeVito vibes. and I also
Really?
can't take him seriously a little bit.
He reminds you of Danny DeVito?
Because,
A
like,
little
he's
bit.
short and angry.
Just a
Yeah.
short little man.
Literally just that. And
Yeah.
also, I watched the episode of Friends yesterday where Danny DeVito's a stripper, so I think he's also fresh in my mind.
okay, gotcha.
I didn't think of this yesterday, so it is probably just I saw
Yeah.
Danny DeVito.
Here's the thing about Joe Pesci. I think, like, the fact that he made his rap album in character as this guy, to me, like, he has to have a sense of humor about
Yeah.
himself and his career. Like, I can't
Well,
imagine you would do that.
It's tough, though, because it's possible he's just so, like, I don't want to say he's cocky, but, like, he's so, like, in love with his own character
Sure,
that maybe
sure.
he thought to do that. I have no idea.
It's possible.
But it could be what you're saying, too,
Mhm.
where he's self-aware.
It's hard to tell. It's so hard to tell.
Do you think he thinks this album is like high art?
My heart says go, my head says no, it's best to stay away. But if I appear, I'm sure to hear all those jerk-offs say,
Hey, Cousin Vinny, yo, Cousin Vinny, is there anything that you
I'd have to listen to it, to be honest,
Yeah.
before I decide that. I'm looking forward to listening to some during editing to insert it.
Yeah.
To the episode. But another thing was, this is unrelated, but you know the exchange between him and the judge, where he's like the two Utes.
Yes.
You know what he was talking about? Apparently, that was taken from an exchange with the director,
Oh my
because
god.
the director's British.
Seriously?
And he didn't understand, basically like the judge,
The
he didn't
Ute.
understand what he was saying, so he's like, that's gold, that's going to go into the film.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys, though. So, most trial movies, like, typically, they get into the main trial segment pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe, like, end of Act 1, that's when the bulk of the trial starts, and it's kind of the rest of the movie. This one spends a lot of time pre-trial, like, even the preliminary and, like, picking the witnesses and stuff before it even gets into the main trial. It's really mostly the third act that is the main trial. So, like, what did you guys think not having that until, like, there was literally 45 minutes left of the movie before we even got to that? Do you think that helped the pacing or harmed it, like, compared to other courtroom movies that you've seen?
I liked it. It reminds me of To Kill a Mockingbird, because in that,
Never seen that.
also, you didn't read the book, and
No, we didn't
Really?
read that one. No.
Whoa.
it's probably like the only one from high school that I actually enjoyed reading while I was reading.
Yeah.
I
You
haven't
read it in
I
high
haven't-
school?
Yeah.
How come I didn't have to read it in high
I
school?
know, that's what I'm saying. We went to the same high school.
Was it in Writer's Craft?
No,
No,
it
I
was in
read
grade
it
10
too.
English. Grade 10 English.
What? Oh no, we read Night.
I
We
also
read that too.
Night.
What else did I read in that class besides the Shakespeare?
Oh,
book?
wait. You might have been in the class that read The Crucible instead. Did you read The Crucible?
I feel like I also read The
What the
Crucible.
fuck is happening right now?
I
Did
didn't
I
read
just
the
read
Crucible.
everything
Okay,
for
I've
fun?
only seen the movie.
The podcast is stopped. We need to solve this. What did you read in grade 10? Who was your grade 10 English teacher?
Oh, I don't remember.
Mr.
Ew.
He could be listening.
Do you really think he could?
No. I'm trying to think what the other book that I read was.
Who was my grade 10 English teacher?
Oh.
Who
what was
were the
mine?
grade 10 English teachers?
Oh, Sylvester. I had
Oh,
Sylvester.
I had Sylvester. Were we in the same class?
I don't know.
We weren't friends yet, so I wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, true, but that's not nice. I don't know.
You don't remember a whole person who went to our school. Did I lose notes again?
Oh,
Okay.
my
Oh
No,
my god, they're gone.
They're on the ground.
Okay.
They're on the ground. We're safe.
I also read I think I read Anne Frank's Diary as a book.
Oh, yeah, I definitely did not read that.
Okay,
We
so
read
those are
that
my two.
in whatever class I was in. I remember reading that almost like a play. Like
With the class?
yeah.
Oh, we just
out
read it
loud
at
with the
home.
class. So I don't know what class I was in, but we did that because I also read it, but we read it through together.
I was in Sylvester's class in second semester. You might have had him in first semester.
Maybe
Because I definitely did not read that. I just read.
because I
To Kill a
definitely had him
Mockingbird.
as a teacher at some point.
Yeah.
I don't remember what grade.
He's so good.
Love him.
Yeah, I read To Kill a Mockingbird, Night, and then Merchant of Venice.
Yeah.
Those were our,
Yeah, Merchant, everyone read.
Wow,
Merchant
I
of
read so
Venice.
much.
Yeah, we read so much back then.
Merchant of Venice sucked, though. That was the worst Shakespeare one that we read. I think.
Really?
I liked it more than Romeo and Juliet.
I really like
think
Merchant
I-
of Venice. I
I-
saw it performed in
yeah?
in Irvine.
Shakespeare in review this, so we're gonna do a.
Oh,
Oh God, please no.
No.
I liked it more than Romeo, but I did not like it as much as Macbeth or Hamlet. I like
I
those
think I
ones.
didn't like it as much as Romeo and Juliet.
Interesting.
I
Very
think
interesting.
I like Romeo and Juliet the best because sucker for a
Of
rom-com.
course you did.
Because
I
it's
like
such a rom-com.
Macbeth is the most exciting.
Yeah, Macbeth is my favorite out of all of them too. But I think it's also because it's just like Breaking Bad. Like when you think like the plot of Macbeth is essentially just every like
Rise to
person
power.
turned evil.
Yeah, but this is what started it all, right?
Correct, and I think that's why I like that one so much. Whereas Hamlet is good, but Hamlet's like, I'm depressed and want to kill myself. Which is also interesting, but in a different way.
I think I'm realizing the reason I like Romeo and Juliet and Merchant of Venice so much is because they're the only two I've seen performed.
That's
Yeah,
definitely
that
a factor.
context it
Yeah,
to it.
so I have no opinion.
That's
then.
100% a factor in it. Dan, not to derail this even more, but since we both like Macbeth, did you ever see the what's his name?
Michael Fassbender.
Yes.
one?
Did
No.
you see that one? I really wanted to see it, but I never got around to it.
I was just gonna say, like, I heard that one got okay reviews, and I was gonna say I wish Macbeth had a really good film adaptation like some of the other ones.
There's one with Patrick Stewart,
really?
but it's in the it's like modern, so it's like guns and whatever. It's not like, which I know like they do that sometimes with Shakespeare, but I'm not a fan of it. Like I'd
Like
rather
Romeo plus Juliet.
Oh my god, yeah, maybe that's why I hate Romeo and Juliet so much. It's just fucking that
I
movie.
never saw it.
Well, we saw that in English class. You guys didn't
I
see
didn't.
No, I watched the original one as well. The like.
that? I also watched the original.
You guys watched both?
And the new one. Yes, in that class.
Be more
Weird.
consistent, teachers. That's what we're learning right now.
I don't think they need our critiques.
This is
They're
now-
going through a lot.
Let's
This
review
is
our high
now
school
a review
teachers.
of the teaching guild.
Yeah. What were we talking
Okay.
about?
My
we were
Cousin
talking about-
Vinny?
We were talking about the pacing.
Yes.
Yes.
To Kill Mockingbird. That's what we were talking about. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's how we got into this.
I also appreciate that in To Kill Mockingbird, it's very famous for the trial at the end, because that's where Atticus Finch does all his Atticus stuff and saves the day. Even though in the
His
sequel book
Atticus
it turns out he's racist, because
Isn't
Really?
the whole first book about not
the
being
whole
racist?
first book is about how he's like,
Did you read the second book?
no, but I remember after it came out. Okay, we're gonna talk about this. So the first book is about specifically Atticus Finch like not being the only not racist person and trying to like defend this clearly innocent person, and like has a lot of famous lines about like whatever, just he is like the hero by far. And then Harper Lee like 80 years later wrote a sequel book where it turns out Atticus is also like basically racist and isn't like the perfect hero that you thought he was, which like on the one hand I kind of understand, like obviously nobody in that time period would have been the perfect hero he was, but also like that's the point of stories about heroes, is to like idealize something of like this is how people should be.
But was the sequel book written in this style? Like, was it written in the era of being against racism and he was realizing that he's not a good person for it? Or was it celebrating that he's not?
I don't know, because I never read it, because I just heard it was bad.
Oh, yeah.
But as far from what I understand, it was more just like a different story, and he was in it, and he was casually racist in it, and so it was like,
Casually racist.
oh, okay, thanks for ruining
That's
this
weird.
beloved fictional character for
That
everyone.
we've been teaching for decades
Yeah,
now.
really weird. But the nice thing about it is, even though like that's so much what people remember, like the first 3/4 of the book is not that. It's like it's not the trial. It's a lot of build up to the trial and the politics surrounding it and yada yada. And then when you get to the trial, it feels like this big climactic thing. And this movie feels the same way in structure, where it's like there's a lot of build up. And I think the nice thing about it is it keeps setting the expectation that like Joe Pesci's such a piece of shit at his job. So that way, like at the end when he can save the day, like in the trial, it feels more like earned as well. It feels more
Rewarding.
gratifying.
Yeah.
To get to like that more traditional courtroom thing of like the lawyer that's really competent and gonna save the day.
It's like his origin story.
Yeah, it's like no, literally, it's like his origin story. Yeah,
It is.
it's cool. I appreciate that, and it didn't like bother the pacing for me, because I feel like to do a straight up comedy
Yeah.
entirely in a courtroom drama would be very difficult. Like
That's what I was gonna say.
You need a lot of time outside of the courtroom for the comedy stuff.
Because like you realistically, whenever he was comedic in the courtroom, he got sent to jail.
Yeah.
And there's only like so much comedy you can fit in the actual courtroom itself without it being like, of course this uptight judge wouldn't allow this, and it
Before it becoming night court.
yeah. So no,
The
it definitely
sitcom.
made sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this
I-
movie just like felt really short to me, so
It is.
obviously it didn't affect the pacing.
Yeah, I like the
Because it is
pacing
still
too.
2 hours long.
But it flies
Yeah.
by.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, I agree. I also like the pacing. I think it's paced nice and it doesn't feel its length at all. I do. It's just something I noticed these last couple times of like, wow, we really don't get to the main trial proceedings until like over an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird, but it works. Also, another behind the scenes fact that I just found out last night is the line when Ralph Macchio is saying like, I shot the clerk, like he's confused. Apparently they had to reshoot that because he was having a really hard time trying to phrase that into a statement that was also a question.
Oh.
Because they use it later in court.
So it was vague enough for them to take it as a statement, but
Yeah.
he was actually like, what, you think I shot the clerk?
Yeah, because I even have that note where when whoever was interviewing him in the police station, whatever.
Interrogating?
Yeah, that's the word. The sheriff, yeah.
Interviewing.
When they had him on the stand and he's like, yeah, he said he shot the clerk. I was like, no, he didn't. He clearly was saying it as a question.
Yeah.
But obviously,
But that might,
Yeah.
I think that feeds into the idea that we were talking about of like,
we know he's innocent.
we know he's innocent, but the town has this bias against him just because of who he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This East Coaster guy who's like new in town in this small, tight-knit town who they think killed one of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like, to some degree, a commentary on how like the justice system fails. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Where it's
This
like
whole movie is
yeah, you're
basically
just
that.
you're reading this like thing out of context that clearly is a question, but you're not framing it as a question when you're reading it, and it's like yeah, for sure.
I agree. I also just wanted to rattle off a list of just my favorite like lines or moments in this movie. So I love how when Ralph Macchio is calling his mom at the beginning. First, I just love how you can picture how like an Italian mother would take that news.
Yeah.
Like you can't hear her over the phone, but you know she's just freaking out when he's like, yeah, we got framed for murder. But listen, we didn't do it, I promise.
Yeah.
And then Stan goes, like he's worried about how it's going to go because of they're in Alabama. He's like, the Klan's here, they're inbred, they sleep with their sisters. And then that one guy looks over at him, like puzzled. He's like,
Yeah.
some of them do. And then when Vinny arrives in town, that one guy comes over to his car because he's like the wheels spinning out of control. He's
Yeah.
like, he got mud in the tires, and then he's like, let me ask you a question. How do you get mud inside the tires? Okay. Also, Marisa Tomei's fashion sense in this movie. What did you guys think? Did it give you Schitt's Creek vibes of David's elaborate outfits
Oh my
in this
God.
small rural town?
A little bit. I feel like because she wore a lot. Did she wear a lot of leather? Or am I confusing
Vinny wore
her
a
with
lot of
Vinny?
leather, but she
Okay.
wore a lot of like black and white and weird like whimsical kind of designs.
Yeah, that's a
I don't
good way
know
of
how
putting
else to
it.
describe
Yeah,
it.
It did feel very 90s to me. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
I just kind of chalked it up to the time period.
I immediately thought of Schitt's Creek. Maybe
Yeah.
because I just started watching it, but
You're finally watching it?
I didn't tell it. Did I tell you?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me,
I
I'm
think
so
you told
I
excited.
thought I messaged the group chat.
Oh, maybe
swore
I skipped
did.
it. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, I'm still. I took a little break, but I'm on
That's
like
great.
season 3.
Amazing.
It's really good.
It's really good.
It's so good.
It's very good.
This whole like Schitt's Creek does just have this movie's vibes kind of all over it when you think
Well,
about it.
I was thinking about like Schitt's Creek is the opposite of this kind of, where it's these outsiders who are dicks, and
Yes.
the town is just trying to be nice to them and
Yes.
Yeah.
welcome.
Yes.
Like this town is very cold and unwelcoming. The town in Schitt's Creek
Yeah.
is very warm and welcoming, and these people are like not the heroes of the story at all, and they're
Yeah.
just like it's them learning to warm up to
100%.
this class of people, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, but
What a good show.
it is a good show.
Maybe I'll rewatch
I'm really
it
liking it
in
so
the
far.
new year.
Yeah, it's nice.
We should do an episode when like everyone has
Oh, I'd love
done
to.
their rewatches / watches.
That is my excuse to rewatch it. I'll start today.
Nice.
Thank you very
Nice.
much.
I also love the Marisa Tomei's biological clock scene.
Yes. Yes.
I think that might be the scene that won her the Oscar, if I had to guess.
it's so good.
I mean, not that her whole performance isn't good, but like that is, you know how when they nominate or when they're showing the nominees,
Yeah.
they show a scene. I think that's probably the scene that they would have shown
Yeah.
at the Oscars.
yeah, she's so great. She's
Either
amazing.
that or her testifying, I guess.
That was the other one.
Yeah.
It's a possibility too, because those are the two scenes that like she, I guess, owns in this movie. Really, But there's a line I really like from Vinny after he, like, you know, the guilty not guilty arraignment scene, and he fucks that up, and then he gets sent to contempt for the first time, and they're on the bus, and Stan's like, why didn't you say anything? Like this is so easy, how could you fuck this up? We could have gotten the case thrown out, like, if you were a better lawyer. And he turns to Stan and he's like, listen, you're an Alabama. You come from New York. You killed a good old boy. There is no way this is not going to trial.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Oh, that's a great moment.
And then, I know I'm jumping around, but there's a scene in this, after the owl scene, when he doesn't know what's making the sound.
The real owl,
yeah.
That was a real owl. That was a fact. They VO'd the sound, but it was a real owl. But when he's scared, because they're at the hunting lodge, he goes to grab a gun, and he grabs the revolver, and he tries to, like, do this cool reloading action where he tries to flip the barrel, but he's shit at it, and it doesn't work, and then, like, slaps him. It's like, ow. Which is funny coming off of Goodfellas, where he handled the gun prop a lot.
Yeah.
So I just found that amusing. It's so weird because in the span of 2 years, he did Goodfellas, and then as I was leaving the house today, my mom was watching Home Alone on the TV, and I was just listening to his performance as I was leaving, and it's like that performance in the same year probably as Goodfellas.
Yeah.
It's so weird to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a testament to, like, a good actor, but and then from, like, bouncing from that to there's always something with the water.
There's always something with the water
I
bottle.
thought I brought the quiet one today, but I guess not.
But I was just gonna say, and then bouncing from Home Alone back to this to this role, which is closer in the direction of, like, Goodfellas, I guess, just more toned down. That's just really impressive to me, I think.
It's got a lot of range.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a lot of range.
No,
It's like you said, where it's just different degrees of Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Different levels.
You know what's crazy? So I just looked it up. So he's in Lethal Weapon 2 in 1989. So all of these movies take place within the same, like, 5-year period of his acting career, which is pretty crazy.
And that one you said is the most different performance?
Yeah, because it's like a straight comedic performance where he's just being, like, quirky and silly the whole time. Yeah, he's being quirky and silly.
Oh yeah, when Trotter's giving his opening statement and says the word "verdict means truth" and comes from England and all our little old ancestors, it cuts to a black juror who's just staring at him confused, like, what the hell, man? I found that really funny. And then when the grits guy is on the stand and Vinny is questioning him, he's like, so would you say that you got a better shot of them going into the store than coming out? He's like, you could say that. And Vinny's like, I did say that. Would you say that? And then in that same scene, he's like, are we to believe that boiling water soaks into a grit faster in your kitchen than on any place on the face of the earth? Perhaps the laws of physics cease to exist on your stove. Were they magic grits? Did you get them from the same guy that sold Jack his beanstalk beans?
That was great. That little bit of lawyering there was awesome.
And then I think the next scene, I just have a note where I liked when he greeted the jury with, hey, how you doing? Because that seemed like a very Goodfellas thing.
Yeah.
So those are all my explicit notes. Did you guys have any extraneous notes that you wanted to get out?
Yes, actually. Speaking of the testimonies, the old lady who saw them from 100 feet away.
Yeah.
How can that be anyone witnessing anything?
Yeah,
I mean,
that shouldn't be admissible.
I know I have glasses and stuff, but especially when he walked
She does
50.
too.
I mean, yeah, when he walked 50 feet away, I was like, I couldn't tell anyone's face from there with glasses on, and I know they're correct enough of a prescription. So yeah, that was ridiculous. And then I feel so bad how at the end she just sadly was like, I guess it is time for me to get glasses. This poor old lady.
But, like, speaking of glasses, even the guy before her, like, they were testing his eyesight, and he saw the eye colors of the two defendants from like across the room even.
Yeah.
Like, I have glasses and I can't sometimes do. Like if someone was standing right there,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
For
yeah,
the
yeah.
podcast, Dan pointed to the other side of the room.
Yes. I think they can figure that out.
I don't know. You could have been pointing
Now
onto
we
the
have to,
street.
we have to take a picture of the room
Yeah.
and put a red arrow with a red circle, like a
We'll,
Can
we'll
Dan see
measure it. We'll put a scale to show you exactly how far away it is. We're just giving ourselves more work. We're not going to do that
Yeah,
We
probably.
have too much to film today.
But yeah, I don't know. Do I have any other notes? I
Any?
found it a little ridiculous that when they brought in the FBI guy, and he was like, "Yeah, he looked at what the chemical composition of the rubber or something," and I'm like,
Yeah.
wouldn't all rubber kind of be the same? Like, how does it prove that it's specifically the tires on their car? And like we know, obviously, it wasn't the tires of their car by the end of it, but I was like, how is this evidence?
I thought about that too.
It's weird. I don't know how that works either.
Like the tire marks, like sure, like
Yeah.
that makes sense, but like it's rubber is rubber, no?
I thought so before this. Like I didn't know that there were different tire companies use
Right.
different compositions.
Yeah.
yeah,
but
I don't know.
looks
All right.
about right.
Well, I think I've said all that I wanted to say. I'll say it again though. If you haven't seen this movie, and also I assume if you're listening to this episode, you probably have seen this movie because I don't really see someone listening to this who hasn't watched My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
It's not like a blockbuster or anything. But yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, definitely check it out. It's a great, very enjoyable watch. I'm glad you two liked it.
So
Yes.
fun.
I mostly picked this episode or this movie for this episode, not because I'm a huge expert on it, like with Jurassic Park, but more because I wanted you guys to watch it.
Yeah.
So this is
Thank
sort
you.
of
It was good. It was a good
for
one.
that. So I'm very glad, and also tune in for next episode, which is Carol's selection episode. And I just want to say, I think it's really cool that our 3 selection episodes this round, like one was a really big budget, big name movie, Goodfellas. One was sort of a mid budget, and then the third one was more of an indie.
Yeah.
We have like all 3 tiers kind
Yeah.
of, sort of like that. Did you want to announce what that's going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be 2020 released Palm Springs, starring Andy Samberg, Love of My Life.
Hulu original?
Hulu original.
I didn't know that until the credits started rolling.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah, indeed. It was a weird year. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what we're talking about next time. Thanks for listening to this one.
Thank you, as per
Thanks.
usual.
Catch you later.
Catch you on the flip side.
Catch you on the flip side.
Oh my god, guys, I forgot!
We never take advantage of that.
No,
at
I
all.
know.